Yeah, it was Sky Bet League Two's weekend in the sun, figuratively, and it stepped up pretty well this time. I seem to remember the last international break, League Two had an absolute stinker. Didn't make use of its billboard situation. But we had a sacking. It came after the game between second bottom and bottom. Came in Shropshire. Shrewsbury 1, Newport 0. And it was Michael Appleton's old mate Scully scoring a ripper to win the game for Shrews.
It was, yeah, it was a great goal. It was a great goal scored by a player who, it would have seemed unthinkable that he'd be playing in League Two when he was playing for Michael Appleton in a Lincoln side that possessed Morgan Rogers and Brennan Johnson, who've gone on to quite good things.
A lot of connoisseurs thought Scully was really the glue that helped loosen the talent.
There probably was a time where he was like the best of them all in terms of his goal scoring record. Alas, his career hasn't quite progressed in the same way as the others. It wasn't a great game. It was a good second half performance from Shrews after a first half where, as has been the case for Newport at times this season, a big moment fell to them in the first 10 minutes with Ogunyai having a one-on-one that was saved. He really should have done better. I think he tried to slip it under the keeper, who made a decent save. And then, as you say, Scully scoring a brilliant shot from outside the area in the second half with the Newport defenders backing off. They had a couple of opportunities to make it 2-0. Big result with this for Shrews. I think there would have been a lot of pressure on Michael Appleton had they not won this game at home to the team in 24th, whose own manager was under severe pressure. As I said in the betting show, I wasn't convinced this was necessarily quite as easy as it looked. And for the most part, they made it look relatively straightforward. 3
home league wins in a row for Shrews. This is a team that have not won very many games in front of their own fans for a good couple of years now. So regardless of performances, which can be questioned, and the tightness of the wins that they are logging, wins they are. 3 in a row at home, and Shrews fans finally just warming up a little bit after, not being treated too much over the last couple of years. Really interesting piece of scouting.
That's a weird noise.
Yeah, scouting and recruitment. One of our favourite things. It's Will Brooke is the Shrewsbury goalkeeper. Now, he was released by Nottingham Forest in the summer, and he signed for Leamington, National League North, if I'm correct. He played 2 games for them, and then Shrews signed him. So he played for Leamington for like a month. And he got signed to compete with Ellie Harrison, who's the youngster on loan from Man United, England Youth International. And Brooke grabbed the gloves pretty quickly. And he's keeping them because he's playing very well. Decent save percentage, a lot of big saves as he made at 0-0 in this game. Really interesting piece of recruitment there. But it was the end of David Hughes as Newport County manager. To Newport, bottom of League Two. They were strong favourites to be relegated, George. They have probably the lowest budget in the league, certainly in terms of squad quality, particularly squad quality at this level, right up against it from the start. And Hughes was going to have to punch above budgetary weight and club size weight to succeed. And he hasn't been able to do that. He couldn't get the team winning. 3 wins in 16 and not a single home win in the league.
Do you know what I quite liked about the fallout from this decision and this managerial departure is it seems to me to be one of the most kind of understanding of different factors and nuance within a fan base that I've seen. Mm-hmm. Like collectively, there have been very few people who seem upset by this or feel like it's the wrong decision. But it seems to be a case of probably had to happen, but... And then a long list of reasons why it wasn't necessarily just Hughes' fault. And it's rare that we see that now. Normally, it's a case where it's like, oh, we're not doing as well as we think we should. We're in the relegation zone. Or you got to sack the manager then, and then we'll start again and we'll have a look. A lot of the frustration, it's fair to say, is being pointed at owner Hugh Jenkins and the way that he has looked to run the club since coming in, especially in terms of recruitment. And there's no denying, as we've discussed on the pod in the last couple of weeks, that the way that Newport looked to recruit, whether that is managers like Dave Hughes, who came from an academy background, and Manchester United, who had managed once before in the Welsh Premier League, or players where Newport are pretty happy to overlook EFL experience, overlook players who've proven anything at the level in order to value talent from non-league, effectively, and talent from the Welsh Premier League as well. And I'd say for the most part, it's funny because I understand why as a fan that would frustrate you. But you look at some of the recruitment they've done, and some of the best players they've recruited have been players from Haverfordwest. Kai Whitmore being one of those who was injured for this, which I think probably had quite a big impact in terms of their attacking play. But it's interesting as a fan base now that it's like, yeah, we need to make a change, but unless it changes in terms of the way that we're being run, nothing will change. It doesn't help Hughes, and this is a really key point to make. And this is, we've been doing this pod for nearly 10 years now, and I say it with basically every single managerial sacking, but in this one it's really stark. Like last season, Newport County finished clear of the relegation zone, but by any underlying metric, by any data you could provide, any data you could find about their performances, they were one of, if not the worst team in League Two. So when you're a manager coming into a club that have finished well above their station from what the performances suggest they should have done, you're always going to come in for a difficult time, because just a regression back to the mean without any negative impact from you is going to have is going to be perceived as you having brought the club to a lower ebb. And that's why, I always think as a manager, you should massively look at underlying numbers when choosing what job you take, because if you are taking over at a side that are overperforming hugely, then you're going to have to improve the team in order just to tread water. And I think that's what's happened here to an extent with Newport County. Yeah,
they've been one of those teams that rarely gets battered, lose a lot of games by a single goal, as they did here. And to start the season, you hope that, how often can we be competitive and lose by a single goal? Will that lead to results turning, or will that lead to confidence dropping? And I think it was the latter. Hughes tried a few different systems, different players have been in and out the squad, and he just hasn't quite landed on anything that allowed them to be either a particularly good attacking team, and they just haven't been able to defend their box as strongly as you kind of need to when you are up against it in a lot of the game. There's a stylistic awkwardness at the moment where, in terms of playing identity, it seems like Hugh Jenkins has always been explicit that he wants them to play a bit like the Swansea team that he was a big part of, the ownership group, the chairman of Swansea as they rose the leagues and developed what is now known as the Swansea Way. I mean, that is a previous era, a different club, far different types of players and manager, and frankly, an entirely different style of football now compared to back then. And neither Nelson Jardim or David Hughes have got anywhere near being able to implement a possession-based style of play with a high press, which I guess is broadly what Jenkins is after, with the team being in any way effective at doing it. And so they have just ended up looking like a team without any particular identity in and out of possession. And that was the case under Jardim, as it is still. So it's a huge challenge for whoever takes over. I think back to when Jenkins bought the club, and I'll be honest, like, even I was caught up in the hope that came with that. The important context is that he bought the club off the fans. Newport were one of the fan-owned teams, along with Wimbledon and Exeter in the EFL, and the fans were massively struggling to keep the club afloat at this level and to build a competitive budget. They had lost money, which fan ownership groups can't really afford to do, because, as we know, it's owners who have to put their hand in their pocket to cover losses, otherwise big issues come. They had to sell the club because they weren't able to run it in a break-even manner. And when Jenkins came in, it felt like at the time to have someone with not only the capital to ease some of the financial situation, if not build a really competitive budget, which I don't think he has been able to do, but also someone with experience running football clubs, with real clear desire to give them a sort of Welsh identity as well. You can see that in the recruitment from Cardiff and Swansea, loans and kind of frees from guys that get released, and from the Welsh Prem as well. I've been very caught up in kind of the romance of it all, and it's something that I wish could work. But the execution of it, they haven't been able to find the balance of doing all that stuff, which could lead to, I think, quite a special Newport County. But the harsh reality of their current situation and of the week-to-week, month-to-month, season-to-season just battle to stay alive and stay afloat, they have not found that balance. And we know that once a team the size of Newport gets relegated from League Two, it tends to be a long road back here. So right now, there needs to be a hire made to focus on short-term results with the current squad as much as possible. I'm just not sure necessarily what this group of players, what style, what sort of manager is going to bring out the best in them. But I guess that's the beauty of good managerial hires. You can't always see it, but sometimes it happens. George, Tranmere beat Cheltenham 3-2. This was a really dramatic game, and it's back-to-back defeats for Cheltenham. They slide back into the bottom two as a result of Shrewsbury's win, and a first league win in 5 for Tranmere. The winner was dramatic fashion. The whole game was dramatic, basically, because Tranmere were 2-0 up early on. A horror show from Cheltenham centre-backs. Firstly, an own goal from Wilson. Not a huge amount he could have done about it. And then a real horror show from Sam Sherring. A short back pass that Ironside intercepted and finished. Cheltenham then, impressively worked their way back into the game. Cottrell makes some seriously attacking subs, and first Jordan Thomas and then Josh Martin equalise for them. Problem then being that with 20 minutes to go, they have an unbelievably attacking lineup without much in the way of midfield or defence. Tranmere break, win a free kick, and Charlie Whittaker steps up, hits a beauty off the post, off Joe Day's back, and dribbles in. A really amazing way for Tranmere to win the game. Fans loving it. I have to admit, I think they should be feeling pretty relieved here. You get an own goal. There are 2 own goals. The first and the third goals are both own goals, and one created by a short back pass. You take those all day long for a 3-2 win, and it doesn't paper over what I perceive to be some surprisingly big cracks in Tranmere's team right now. 1 clean sheet in 16 probably being the best way to sum that up. And sort of conversely, even though it's Cheltenham who've lost, and that's back-to-back defeats now, Cottrell's approach here, how bullish he was post-match, and how much he seemed to be saying, look, I want us to go for the win. I don't want us to just be fighting for everything relegation fodder. I want us to take on a more punchy, bullish mentality. I don't mind that at this stage of the season. It's still so early. And they've got quality in midfield, attacking midfield, wide areas. Isaac Hutchinson, Jordan Thomas, Ethan Archer, Hakeem Adelican snuck in on a free the other day. And Josh Martin's come up with some big goals too.
Yeah, I mean, Adelican's a really eye-catching signing for a club who are the bottom end of League Two, someone who's shown in his 2 previous League Two moves at both Doncaster and at Salford what a good player he can be. It's always pretty. His career seems to follow a very different path to other people's, where he seems to go to these clubs on short-term deals, does quite well, then doesn't play football for a while before he's picked up again, which I don't really understand.
Interesting approach, yeah. I
imagine he must be on a fair whack to go to Cheltenham. I can't imagine he fits into the wage structure that was in place prior to Cottrell's arrival, but certainly a player that should be a big use to them. But maybe just a reminder for us and for Cheltenham Town fans that Cottrell's arrival, whilst it was a huge moment for them and they've obviously improved, they're not out of it yet.
Oh, absolutely not. Accrington 3, Bristol Rovers 1. George, is a big game for both teams, both looking for wins after a slow start to the season in terms of wins and points. Aki winning 3-1 and moving above Gas in the table as a result.
Yes, such an important win this for Accrington, and really disappointing, I'd say, from Bristol Rovers, who put in a better performance last time out but were beaten by Gillingham. And started the game here up against a side kind of beneath him in the table, a team who they have to look at now as being one they're going to be battling it out with in order to stay up, and conceding within 5 minutes. Brilliant work from Sean Wally down the right hand side into Heath, who continues his very impressive season by scoring within the first 6 minutes or so.
That was a really nice move, wasn't it?
It was a great move, yeah.
It involved a lot of different parts of the team, which I always like. So Devon Matthews, the big centre-back, galloped forward. Nice combination play between Wally and Walton. And then I love a young wide forward crashing the 6-yard box and getting tap-ins. I feel like that's what coaches in the modern game, they constantly say. The kids these days, they want to cut in and score worldies. Yeah. They don't want to crash the 6-yard box and get freebies. And that's what Heath did.
Done. Yeah, for sure. Cameron Conter scored a brilliant strike from outside the area to kind of bail Bristol Rovers out to an extent, who created very little within the game. Ellis Harrison had a very good opportunity kind of at the back end of the first half that he wasn't able to convert. And so you're looking at Bristol Rovers there, like, you're back in the game here. Like, how, it's 1-1, you've had a long losing run, a player scored a 25-yarder to put you level, how are you going to react? And they concede from a set piece. And I counted, there are only 5 Accrington players sent forward into the box for the corner. The corner comes in and a Bristol Rovers defender tries to clear it and basically only succeeds in heading it kind of a flick on header into the 6-yard box, where Rawson, who we know is so good from attacking set pieces, is there to convert to make it 2-1 to Accrington. And then Bristol Rovers head drops and the ball isn't cleared, and it falls to Sinclair, who kind of screws a shot to the bottom left-hand corner from wide on the right-hand side of the penalty box. A brilliant result for Accrington, who continue their upturn in form. But what do Bristol Rovers do now? Because the poor form is really stark. The underlying numbers are bad. The results are bad. Accrington leapfrogged them in the table off the back of this. Teams beneath them, when you're looking at Shrewsbury, for example, and other sides, even Accrington themselves improving. You know, I personally wouldn't advocate Clark being removed, because I cannot work out who they would get in who's better, and they've shown over the last couple of hires that they're not particularly good at identifying manager hires. And this time last year they made an absolutely disastrous appointment to try and stop their relegation into League Two. But we know that Darrell Clark is a manager, has big good spells and long difficult spells, and I can't remember many occasions where he's got a team out of it. So hugely concerned about Gas right now, and very much on my relegation radar.
I saw that Camille Conte goal and I thought how excited I was when he joined Bristol Rovers in League One. I thought he'd be able to establish himself at that level. And then I thought, you could say that about so many Bristol Rovers signings from the last 2 seasons. And I think that is just one of those demonstrations of a spiralling club. So many aspects of it get affected. And one of them is players like Camille Conte, Shaq Ford, Promise Omakere, Ruel Sotiriou, Isaac Hutchinson. All of those guys, when they signed for Bristol Rovers, were, I think, 23 or younger. All of them have had good spells at other clubs at League One or League Two level. All of them have been, well, Hutchinson's now out the door at Cheltenham. Sotiriou missed a big chance here, not performed well in the Bristol Rovers shirt. Omakere the same, Ford the same, Conte, I think he's been pretty up and down. I think this season, suggestions from Bristol Rovers fans that he's not looked that up for it. It's just amazing, like all the different ways that bad energy, bad decision making, and yeah, what I would broadly describe as a spiral can kind of lead to everyone coming across badly. But they're not bad players. We know they're not bad players. We know that in better teams, in better systems, they can be good. So maybe it's going to be someone else's go at some point to see if they can get them going. MK Dons beat Salford by 2-0. Carl Robinson back at Stadium MK. And yeah, strange game this, where normally I'd feel bad about saying the team that won 2-0 just comfortably second best. Then I saw local journo Toby Locke, who covers MK, who I respect a lot. He just tweeted, second best for most of the game, Dons win 2-0. And that's basically the story of the game. Salford missing some big chances. Kelly Namai, one of them. Bit of bad luck, bit of bad execution. And I must admit, it was almost impossible to see what MK were awarded a penalty for. I know that it was Sanders being fouled in the eyes of the ref by one of the Salford defenders. Very difficult to see exactly how serious an infringement it was. And Mendes-Lang scored to put them 1-0 up. And then Salford knocking on the door, playing really well away from home, not scoring. Patterson on the break, tapping in deep into injury time. So it's a 2-0 win where the scoreline does not suggest this was one of those put your comfy slippers on, we're going to win a home game 2-0 and look pretty good in the process. Not that at all. And kind of reflects two things. One, Salford's performance level at their best is exquisite, or excellent, I should say. I'm not sure I describe any Salford performances as exquisite. But they're still not quite a serious winning machine. But based on the way they're playing at their best, I still am convinced we're going to see a run of Salford winning 5 out of 6 and suddenly getting towards the top of the table, which we've already seen this season from Walsall, from Swindon, from Notts County. Like, everyone's having a go, and it'll be Salford's go soon. I think that's fairly obvious. MK move into third. Favourites to win the title pre-season. Still favourites to win the title, 3-1 with Sky Bet. Numbers not great, massively, don't take very many shots, but convert them at the highest rate in the league by miles. Defensively, not nearly as good as I thought that they were going to be, particularly after the first few games where they completely shut the opposition out. And yeah, picking up points, got good players, doing good things. Maybe that will continue. Maybe the performances will improve and they'll find yet another level. That would be pretty scary for the rest of the league. But overall, George, this is a League 2 where 5 points separate the top 10. So looking at league position really still seems to be, well, I mean, you can, but if you're
doesn't mean much.
If you're hanging your hat on league position,
you can look at whatever you want.
It's going to change week to week. George, you say you can look at whatever you want. I want you to take a look at Grimsby 0, Chesterfield 1 for me.
Yeah, funny game this. I mean, just for those who don't listen to the betting show, I'm going to give some context the next kind of few minutes, because I put up Grimsby as my best bet to win this weekend, even money on the betting show. At 5:45, after Chesterfield had beaten Grimsby, former Oxford centre-back and current Chesterfield centre-back Shay Dunkley
Ain't nobody.
quote tweeted the clip on Twitter with the 50 Cent gif of him laughing in a car and then speeding away, which created something of a pile-on from the Spy Rights fans. And I actually only saw this morning when he mentioned it to me. I was blissfully unaware, thank God, because I wouldn't have liked to have seen it on a Saturday night. And, the context of it is what you'd expect. Because part of the reason why I spoke about Grimsby being the best bet this weekend was because of Chesterfield's unbelievably bad defensive numbers, expected goals defensive numbers, of which it was kind of partially inflated by the 6-2 defeat to Colchester a couple of weeks ago. And what I'd like to say to Chesterfield fans is the red card changed this game. I mean, I'm not, there's no denying that I was wrong. Grimsby didn't win the game. But up until the 55th minute, Town were the better side. And Hemming was the most important player on the pitch, making a couple of very important saves.
One tremendous save
really
from
good save.
Walker.
And then the only save that he didn't make was Jay's Cadbury at the back post, who managed to head wide from not very far out at all. So I would say for the first 55 minutes or so, what I thought was going to happen kind of did happen. But Grimsby were the better side and were knocking on the door. Chesterfield didn't really trouble them. But crucially, Chesterfield then broke. Well, I say they broke. It was an unbelievably bad mix-up between Charles Vernam and McJanet, where Vernon played this back pass. McJanet kind of could have intercepted it, but basically let it run across him. And Bonis snipped in between him and took it around Pym, and Pym wiped him out and was sent off.
Yep.
Totally correct decision, obvious red card. He probably, almost certainly would have scored had Pym not wiped him out, which would have made it 1-0 to Chesterfield anyway. And then the goal came from a shanked clearance from Rodgers that was diverted into their own net, and Chesterfield very much turned the screw from that moment onwards. So, I've seen some Grimsby fans off the back of this be like, our bubble is burst, we're not as good as we think we are. I'm not really having that. I still think this is a Grimsby side that are very, very good and will continue to win a lot of games. They're just going through a sticky patch at the moment. They could have easily gone ahead in this game early on and seen it out relatively comfortably. It's a massive result for Chesterfield. It really is. They're back to being the third favourites to win the league again now, which I wouldn't say I necessarily agree with. It's a big win for them away from home at a side who've been really impressive so far this season. A really important clean sheet as well to go with it. Big performances from senior players. McFadden at the back was brilliant. Naylor in midfield was very, very good as well. I did see that Shay was taken off with 20 minutes or so to go on a yellow card. That's the Shay Dunkley that I remember. But also played a big part in this win too. So big win for Chesterfield. I wouldn't read too much into it because 11v11, there wasn't much in it, but the result is important. I think for Grimsby and Dave Artell, you just draw a line through it. But frustrating for them having been 2-0 up at home away at Barrow the weekend before and draw that game to then not capitalise from some good positions early on in this one. And they travel to league leaders Swindon Town on Saturday.
It's a very weird coincidence that we both received Twitter pile-ons based on clips that went live from the betting show. Those betting show clips we do every week and very rarely get the level of attention that those got.
Yeah, it's just fun that loads of Chesterfield fans being like, you have no idea what you're talking about, these guys don't know football, and it's like, yeah, we had you first and I won 24s, so it's bad news for you if we're that stupid.
Well, yeah. There's one key difference in the nature of the pylons that we had is that, and I love this for me and I hate this for you, but I was getting a lot of heat before the game had even happened from Wycombe fans who didn't like that I'd picked Port Vale to beat them. And Chesterfield fans, as far as I could see, were pretty much silent before that game and only piped up after they'd won.
I think Cheyenne has something to do with that, didn't he?
Yeah, but I just think, and obviously I'm only looking at it from our point of view, I just think it's way more fun and interesting for us if people hear something, they don't agree with it.
Call us out early.
And they take us head on before the game's actually happened. Because then it's, someone's going to be right and someone's going to be wrong.
But we also
wait for the result and then only tweet based on the outcome.
But we know
that's just boring.
Football fans, right? You win a game of football, you celebrate with your friends and family that you're with. You really enjoy it. And then you think, right, who do we beat and how can I rub it in their face?
Well, I guess I just appreciated the Wycombe fans who just went early with it.
Yeah.
Because I thought, look, what you've done is created a much more interesting scenario where if Port Vale win, I'm going to fire off a few beery tweets on Saturday evening, and if they lose, you're going to do the same. And if it's a 0-0 draw, as it was, we'll all just kind of forget that it happened. Right, next up is our Sky Bet surprise feature, and we're just making a tweak. We reckon maybe an improvement to the feature where whatever we are, 15 weeks into the season, and the Sky Bet surprise up to this point has been us telling you about the anatomy of the biggest price winner of the weekend with Sky Bet. And we think it's been really great, and I think we've shone a light on some really impressive and often underdog performances. But for the next few months, we want to try and give ourselves a bit more variety. And we think that a surprise win doesn't necessarily have to be the result, but it could also be a scoreline, and it could also be the manner of a victory. I say all that to say, this week's Sky Bet surprise on NTT20's Monday pod is Colchester's 2-0 win at Walsall. The correct score of Colchester winning 2-0 at Walsall was 14-1 pre-game with Sky Bet. But this was a tactical victory in the dugout and a performance victory on the pitch. Danny Cowley said it's one of my favourite results since becoming Colchester Box. We don't like changing the way we play, and we're umming and ahhing about whether to do it. But when we looked at the opposition, their threats, it made sense for us to adapt. So how did that look? Well, it might look on paper like a defensive approach, but it was the correct approach. Basically a 5-4-1 with Tucker, Flanagan and Harvey Araujo as centre-backs, Vincent Young and Iandolo as wing-backs, speed on the flanks, which has been a big part of Cole Hughes' play in the last few weeks, of Kyrese Lisby and Harry Anderson, and then Teddy Bishop and Arthur Reed in midfield behind Samson Tavide up top. Why can I say with confidence it was a tactical victory? Because Matt Sadler said this: they changed things around and it was really effective. For 45 minutes, they were definitely the better team and we didn't react quickly enough to the changes. So both managers talking about a change in approach from Colchester that saw them start the game better and be 2-0 up early on in the match. Firstly, a set piece, a second phase, ball fired across, Tavide taps in. And the second goal, I could not have loved any more because Arthur Reed got on the ball and there was a break on.
So good.
And Reed looked up and shaped to play a long pass. Got closed down, shimmied inside the first defender. Second defender comes and closes him down. Bit of transition defence for Walsall. Nutmeg. And then plays the pass perfectly to the on-running Tavide down the left-hand side. Tavide carries it, looks up, and there's Lisby streaking into the back post. Tavide's ball across. Absolutely perfect for what was a simple finish. 2-0 Colchester. Did they need to create any more? No, they did not. 3 shots in the whole game, and Walsall huffed and puffed in the second half. But Cole already had that shape and structure, and the game plan was to give Walsall the ball and ask them questions. And they didn't have the answers. But Tucker and Flanagan and Araujo, all excellent at the back, defending their box brilliantly. A massive win for Cowley's team, who, George, 4 wins, 1 draw and 1 defeat in their last 6 games. Some really strong underlying performance data, albeit partially juiced up by a crazy, massive win against Colchester United, against Chesterfield. But a really, really interesting team at the moment, even if they're not even in the top 10.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, don't even look at the table. It's irrelevant. They are very much in the mix and in the hunt, I think, for a top 7 spot and a promotion spot. And the one defeat, that 6-2 win over Chesterfield seemed to be the spark that was needed. The start of the season with some good underlying numbers, but the results weren't there. But since then, they've only lost 1 game. That was a 2-0 defeat against Bromley, where they were good. They were the better team up until the kind of 70th minute in that game. They conceded twice late, but nothing in the performance that was too much to worry about. They've got young players who are improving week on week. Intriguing to see how Danny Cowley is trying to play both Mika and Bick and Samson Tavide in the same team. I think Bick is better playing as a genuine striker, but he's currently playing a slightly more with Jordan role. But Tavide is playing well, so fair enough. Kyrese Lisby's looking really sharp, having a big season. Then, as you mentioned, Reed, so important, as is Payne. It's just a very good side. And it's interesting to note, what you said there about Matt Sadler giving them credit, because it kind of felt like a Walsall performance from Chesterfield. The kind of performance we've been used to seeing Walsall churn out, where they only had 3 shots in the whole game. 2 of them were goals and massive chances. They only completed 160 passes in the game. Like, this was the way that Walsall have been so efficient in terms of not needing the ball but creating good chances rather than loads of them. Danny Cowley basically took that and said, yep, we'll do that and we'll go ahead and we'll sit deep and you're going to have loads of the ball and you're not going to know what to do with it. And that's basically what happened, apart from just an absolutely wild goal line clearance from after an insane bit of skill from Albert Adoma, which I have watched about 15 times and can't really work out what happened.
That's classic Albert Adoma, isn't it? Yeah, and then I suppose that the flip side is Walsall, who have won 7 out of 7 in the league when they've scored the first goal. But when they go behind, as they do here, again, really struggling when the opposition just give them the ball and they can't implement their very distinct style on the opposition. So Matt Sadler needs to continue to develop another way of winning, basically. Matt on the NTT20 squad with a really good breakdown of things at the moment. Not going over the top, but just flagging kind of areas of the pitch where, particularly if you compare them to this time last season when they were just rattling off their incredible winning streak, you know, the midfield, for example, lots of midfielders in the squad, lots of rotation, which is what Sadler told me in the interview. He wants to rotate more this year pretty much because, you know, he doesn't want such a physical workload on a small group of players. But just in terms of finding the balance between Comley, Finnegan, Warrington, Clark, Lakin, Jellis, just hasn't quite worked as well as last time with Jellis, Lakin in front of Sturck. And yeah, Connor Barrett, crucial player for them, the right wing back, generates a lot of their attack. But Cole, you basically double marked him here, and with him out the game, Walsall looked like they didn't have any answers. So food for thought there. They're still second in the league. Swindon actually went top this weekend with a draw at Fleetwood, which I think kind of sums things up at the moment. Teams getting to the top and then getting vertigo, having a nosebleed, and then others catching up with them. It's a really, really exciting league at the moment. Bromley are massively part of the conversation now, George. They are starting to churn out wins. This one was a 2-1 home win against Barrow, where Marcus Eiffel scored a really nice goal from the edge of the box to put them ahead. I was laughing looking at Marcus Eiffel's Wikipedia page. There's not a lot on there. Young player, 22-year-old, just turned 22. He's, you know, just making his first steps in senior football. Has become a big starter for Bromley at right wing back this season. Of the 5 sentences on his page, George, one says, shortly after joining Brighton's academy, he was named by The Guardian as Brighton's best first-year scholar at the club. Wow. And I just think, always buy anyone
from Brighton
available to you if you're a League 2 club who's previously played for Brighton and being considered one of their brighter prospects.
Yes.
And it's worked well. Eiffel had the second half of last season to kind of sit, watch, learn, and he's been thrust in as a starter this season and looks excellent from right wing back. Showed his quality here. You know, they had Danny Imre last season and he was brilliant for them, but that was only a loan, and Eiffel is there permanently. And you know, for a team like Bromley, fantastic to be able to build some assets like that. Ben Whitfield scored a magnificent equaliser from Barrow, just an incredibly powerful strike, loose ball that he just whacked into the net. And the winner just came down to a big misjudgment from Charlie Raglan. Ball skidded over his head. Michael Cheek latched onto it. Would he score the winner? No. This time setting up his striking partner, Nicky Kabamba. Now, strikes me that Bromley, there's lots to like about Bromley. We know about their set-piece threat. We know about Michael Cheek. But Kabamba's there. He's fit. He gets used in a really interesting way by Woodman, where he starts some games, but mostly he's brought off the bench, and he's just really dangerous, and he's a proper poacher, and he's essentially like another Michael Cheek. And I just think how many teams in the league would love one Michael Cheek, and Bromley have got like 1.5, maybe 2 Michael Cheeks, because Kabamba leads League 2 for goals per 90 this season. I mean, you literally cannot want any more from your backup striker, and Bromley are into 5th. I mentioned the Fleetwood draw against Swindon. Tafazzoli's header putting Swindon ahead. Swindon's 15th different league scorer this season, which is more than any other team in England's top 4 divisions, and shows the array of players that they've added to the squad in the summer. And Ryan Graydon cancelled it out, also with a header. Swindon's defensive absences possibly being demonstrated with some, they got opened up very, very easily, and then a nice cross from the right from Virtue was headed home by Graydon. I sort of think decent result for both. Fleetwood 1-1 against Swindon. Swindon go top despite winning 1 of their last 5 league games, which kind of sums things up. A remarkable story in Nottingham. Absolutely remarkable story in Nottingham, where Simon Weaver told us midweek, after 4 players had come off injured in their trophy game, that he was only going to be able to name 1 outfield player on the bench for their game against Notts County. And he lied, but only just. 3 subs total, 1 sub-keeper, 1 Sean Mikulski, and 1 youth team player.
And 1 Sean Mikulski, who gave away a penalty in the 93rd minute.
What?
I
don't think it was.
It was.
No, but I don't think it was a penalty. I couldn't really see what it was for.
It really looked...
I think it was outside the box, regardless.
It really looked outside. I think it may have been a foul, because obviously the whole outside the box thing is a bit of a myth, because if the foul continues inside the box, then it's a penalty. But it looked to me like there was a foul outside the box. And then, who was it for Notts County? It was a substitute. I will find out in a second. Basically just carried on running into the box and then just threw themselves down in order to try and get the penalty, and succeeded.
I felt hardly done by, and I'm not even a Harrogate player or fan, but maybe it was partly the emotion of the fact.
Will Jarvis.
Jarvo. Jarvo. Always a prankster.
Yeah. Kersons scored with about 5 minutes or so to go the first half, after Notts County had been well on top, with Duke McKenna on international duty, which is kind of taking the mickey a bit for a team who have so many substitutes so they can't even field a bench. In League 2, it feels a bit harsh, but it was a really good move.
To be fair, if you sign Guyana's premier wide attacker, you have to expect to lend him to Guyana a couple of times this season.
Yeah, for sure. And luckily, Tom Kersons isn't going to trouble the England squad anytime soon, so he's absolutely fine. But it was a brilliant goal. Really smart bit of link play from Jack Muldoon to kind of develop. I think it was Morris who played the ball into him, and Kersons with a close range finish. James Belshaw, who came through at Notts County before being released and has spoken about being a Notts County fan, I think, on this very podcast, possibly. Returning back to his home club and pulling off a couple of decent saves, but unable to stop the penalty from Matthew Dennis in the 93rd minute to get Notts County. It's one of those points where, like, at the moment, I was like, yes, we didn't lose. And then in hindsight, I'm like, home against Harrogate, who only had 2 outfield players on the bench.
Yeah.
Probably should have won that one.
What spirit showed by Harrogate. I'm so sad for them that they didn't get that win, because an absurd situation to have that amount of absences. But an amazing point. You have to say that they'd have surely taken pre-game. Gills 2, Crawley 2, live on Sky at 5:30. This was a great advert for League 2 football. And it's a proper, like, completely opposite styles that I think it worked quite well. What I liked about this was when we talked about this game, you were very keen to tell me how much you'd loved the performance of Bradley Dack.
Yes.
And I was very keen to tell you how much I was just loving watching Crawley's general approach to the game, particularly in the first half. The way that they play, I mean, it's nothing new under Scott Lindsay. They went up playing beautiful football, and they have stuck with that in League One, where they didn't have the talent advantage and they conceded 7 goals a game and scored 3, it felt like. And now in League 2, where they've been inconsistent to start the season. But I do admire, like, the identity and the playing identity. And when they play well, it looks beautiful, particularly in comparison to other teams at this level, many of whom don't try and play that sort of way and have very good reasons for doing that. It felt, put it this way, George, it felt pretty classic and typical that Crawley, having sliced Gills open a couple of times in the first half, missed a one-on-one, hit the woodwork twice and played brilliantly, went behind to a set piece from Gillingham. But that wasn't the end of the story. Lots of controversy in the second half surrounding penalty incidences and offsides and whatnot. The upshot is Gills fought back to go 2-1 up, but Crawley equalised through Kabongo Shamanga. It was a great game. I think both teams gave it a pretty good go. And I think probably overall the correct result. But when there's so much incident in a game, it is quite hard to analyse on that front. Josh Flint of Crawley, their left centre-back, he's the one for me. The way that he interprets that outside centre-back role, not many at this level, I think. That level of quality on the ball, stepping forward, combining in wide areas, but providing good progressive passing as well. He looks like a quality player for me. 2 matches that happened: Cambridge 0, Barnet 0. Matt Ramsey, the local Cambridge reporter, pointing out that probably man of the match here was the Cambridge keeper, Jake Eastwood. So Barnet probably will feel like they did enough to win the game. This is the team in Cambridge with the joint best home record in League 2 against the team in Barnet with the joint best away record. And Barnet continue to impress with their performances. Still not hugely reflected in the league table that has them 11th, but all very condensed, as mentioned. And finally, Oldham 0, Crewe 0 was a match that happened. Another good Crewe Alek's performance, and they went close a number of times, and they probably deserved to win the game just based on the balance of play. But you got to finish your dinner, and Crewe did not do that. Thanks for listening to this week's pod. Please do subscribe to our YouTube channel, and if you're listening on Spotify, if you could drop us a 5-star rating, that makes a big difference to us. We've got a bonus episode planned in the week, so keep your eyes peeled for that and your ears warm for it. And we'll be back again on Thursday for a betting show.
Keep your ears warm. It's cold out there.
Go well.